Good morning. In this video, I'm going to go over some questions that you guys asked on Instagram, like what has been my biggest mental struggle, what do I think about my start date this year, what things are different from my through hike from 2021, and the worst part of the Appalachian Trail. Then I'm going to get into some common gear questions and what has been my favorite piece of gear on trail so far. But first, I want to thank Element, which is the sponsor of this video. So this right here is a packet of Element. It's an electrolyte drink mix. I've been carrying Element for the whole Appalachian Trail so far and drink these pretty regularly. It's a great way for me to stay hydrated on the trail because I'm putting in some big days. I'm sweating a lot. And in my opinion, you can't have a successful through hike if you don't stay hydrated. One of these packets, mixed with some water, contains 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, which is a science-backed formula. It's also a huge bonus that Element tastes really good and comes in some really fun flavors. That way I don't get too bored of just drinking plain water. This is something I recommend and take on my through hike. You can get a free sample pack of Element with any purchase on their website with my code, which is drinkelement.com/Nahamsha. That's drinklmnt.com/Nahamsha. You can also hit the link in my description, so you get that free sample pack with any purchase. And now let's get into all the questions that you asked me on Instagram. My toughest mental struggle so far on the AT. That is definitely getting my hopes up with a town stop and not being able to kind of facilitate that. So not having openings at the motel or the hostel, not being able to book a shuttle or an Uber. So yeah, I get my hopes up. I love towns, and then when I'm not able to experience the town, then I get really down on myself and I get totally bummed. So that's something that's happened a few times that has been tough for me mentally. Have ticks been a concern with me on the AT so far? I have not seen a single tick. I look at my legs pretty frequently as I'm hiking, especially when I'm wearing shorts, because when I found ticks on myself during the last through hike, maybe only like 4 during the whole hike, they were often kind of on my legs or on my socks crawling up. So I look down quite frequently to check, but I've not seen any. I know they're out there, and I know people I've hiked with have seen ticks, and I have not treated my clothing and my gear with permethrin. That's definitely something that's recommended. I just forgot, honestly. How many hours of sleep do I get? On this hike, have been staying up pretty late, which isn't great, but I don't know, sometimes I'm just not tired at night. In my tent, I tend to fall asleep a little earlier, sometimes like 10 or 11. When I'm in a motel or a hotel, I'm usually up until like midnight, which isn't great, but I think every day I wake up around 7, so I'm still getting decent sleep. I shoot for the 8 hours, but sometimes it's a little less, but it hasn't really affected me that much. I don't feel too tired throughout the day, like due to lack of sleep. I feel tired because of the miles, but yeah, I try to get sleep, but it's oftentimes not. I don't get to bed that early. So what are the differences between my through hike in 2021 and my through hike right now? You mentioned Cody. My last through hike, I was hiking with a hiking partner, and it was really nice always having someone to hang out with, to camp with, to go into town with. But this time I'm completely solo, which is a whole different ball game. I am just, I think, more relaxed. I think I'm in no rush to do anything by any certain time. I think I hike slower. I think I get to camp later, and yeah, that's a little bit of a difference. Other than that, it's really pretty similar. Honestly, I don't feel pressure to do certain things this time around because I've already done the trail, so I don't feel pressure to do the 4-state challenge or to go to certain hostels or go into town. I'm just really calm and just doing my own thing, which feels peaceful and nice. If I had to give up either Duncans or Gougers, I would give up Gougers. I love Duncans, I love iced coffee, and I don't know, I don't really have Gougers that often. I mean, I eat them a lot on trail, and for some reason I became known for eating a lot of Gougers, and they're good. They help me up on the climbs, but I don't know, they're not that important in my life. Dunks is definitely an important part of my life. So if we're comparing start dates, in 2021, I started the AT on February 22nd, and this year I started the AT a few weeks later, March 9th. And I think the biggest difference was definitely early on, and maybe a little bit now, but with hostels being booked. I feel like that's not something I had to deal with in 2021. I started off ahead of the bubble. I started hiking quick, and whenever I booked a room at a hostel or a hotel, like, everything had availability. This time around, it's been pretty difficult, and there's been hostels that I wanted to stay at that I couldn't because they were totally booked, and shuttles are booked. There's always a plan B, a plan C, and I kind of get around that. If we're going with weather-wise between the two start dates, it's very similar. If anything, my later start date this year has been colder than my February start date. So it really depends on the year. I do wish I could have started the AT earlier this year just because I want to finish the trail earlier. So in 2021, I finished the trail on June 22nd. And this year it's looking more like the first, second, third week of July. I love summer. I want to be home for summer. And that's the only thing that is kind of not great about my later start date this year, is that I have to finish the trail later, but it'll all work out. Do I get lonely on the AT? Sometimes, but I honestly don't mind being alone. I love just going into towns by myself, doing my own thing. I have no issue walking into a restaurant and getting a booth by myself. That's actually pretty nice for me, but I do like knowing people on trail. Like, I went to a brewery the other day and 3 guys walked in that I had met before, and I got really excited. I was like, please sit with me, like, please have lunch with me. And yeah, when I went to the breakfast buffet at the Skyline Resort and I saw a couple hikers I knew, I sat with them. So I get excited when I hang out with other hikers, but I don't often crave it because I'm just really content just doing my own thing out here. What age did I start hiking? I didn't start hiking until I was in my 20s. I think I moved to New Hampshire when I was around 20 years old and then started doing hikes very shortly after, and now I'm 28. So I've maybe gone on like 1 or 2 hikes as a kid, but I kind of got into it by myself in my 20s. Now, the worst thing about the Appalachian Trail, for me, for sure, is getting everything soaked when it rains. So sometimes it rains and it's not too bad and my rain gear keeps me dry, but sometimes it just downpours and all my layers get wet, and every time I open up my backpack, rain gets in, and sometimes it gets hard to keep your gear dry. And then especially if the weather gets really cold, you don't want to be wet and cold, and sometimes you can't really find a place to stay. And so that's the worst part, being wet, cold, and camping outside while you're wet and cold. That is pretty bad. Also, shout out to the Rolling Bears because they asked for a shout out. I don't know who you guys are, but hopefully you're watching this. Now, there's a couple gear questions that I want to answer. My favorite piece of gear so far, I think, is this water bottle. So this sits right here as I hike. I fill it with water. Sometimes it's just filled with water. This is also what I put my electrolytes in and shake it up. And yeah, it sits right here, and then throughout the day I can just drink it and I don't have to worry about anything. It's super easy to refill because it's got this big opening, so I can just pour my water filter right into there, get filtered water. I can mix up my drink mix super easily, and then just having the straw right here, I drink so much more. So favorite piece of gear. This blue sun shirt that I have is also one of my favorite pieces of gear. I wear it every day, if it's hot out, if it's cold out. Sometimes I wear it to bed in town. I wear it to bed in my tent. I literally never take it off. Sometimes I'll put it in a creek and try to wash out the sweat and kind of squeeze it out to dry, and it dries super fast, which is nice. It's kind of like a loose fit, so it's super comfortable. The material's like breathable and stretchy, and I always kind of got nervous hiking in a long sleeve because I thought I would overheat, but it's actually pretty cooling on the hot days. The brand is Outdoor Research. I don't know the model name of it. I got it at a gear shop in Damascus. It's online. I think I have it linked in the description if you want to check it out. But yeah, I am loving this. Don't regret it at all. It was like $100, but worth every penny. It has been holding up okay. Like, it's kind of getting pilly in some spots, but it might have been an issue with like a washing machine because I noticed it right after I did laundry. And also the back of my shirt is brown, and even after I wash it, like, I think it's just stained. And why do I have this brand of watch instead of like the popular Garmin watches? So this is the Coros Apex Pro, and the main reason I got this is because of the battery life. I put it in full GPS mode every morning, and I don't turn it off until I get to camp at night. So it's like 12 hours a day sometimes tracking my hikes, and I don't think Garmin's could handle that much, especially on like a day-to-day basis. So just the battery life of this is insane. I've only had it die on me once, maybe twice on a hike. And now that I'm getting further north, I'm doing bigger stretches in between towns. So I think that's why. Yeah, I hiked for 3 or 4 days in a row, and that was the first time it died on me. So battery life is great. And that's gonna do it for this Q&A. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you on the trail tomorrow. Bye.